Take a good look at these photographs. These are the 33 men, women and children who were kidnapped from Israel and taken to Gaza by Hamas on 7th October 2023. Two of them, as you can see, are children. One is a toddler, just 2 years old. The other is 5 years old. The oldest is an 86-year-old man, a grandfather. And 10 of them are women. 3 of these 33 hostages would be free in less than 24 hours from now, after 471 days in captivity. Let me quickly tell you how we got here. Doha, Wednesday, 15th January. Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani makes an announcement the world has been waiting for. Israel and Hamas agree to swap 98 hostages for Palestinian prisoners as part of a deal to end the 15-month-old Gaza conflict. The US and its allies, including Egypt, that mediated the peace talks, waste no time in welcoming it. The world heaves a sigh of relief. How did it happen? What swung the deal? Here's the inside story.
After 8 months of non-stop negotiation.
Ever since that fateful morning of 7th October 2023, when Hamas fighters swooped down on unsuspecting revelers and rode into villages to carry out a mass massacre of Israeli men, women and children, the world has been transfixed by the spiral of violence that has upended the world as we know it. Hamas kills more than 1,200 Israelis. As retribution, Israel flattens Gaza to rubble. Tens of thousands of Palestinians have since perished, and millions have been displaced internally, including Israel. The Hamas has been dealt a fatal blow that it will find difficult to recover from. The Hezbollah in Lebanon is a pale shadow of its former self. Bashar al-Assad has fled Syria, and Iran has been weakened like never before. The Gaza deal was at least 8 months in the making, if not more. First, Netanyahu and then Biden proposed a ceasefire and hostage release deal in May 2024. But Netanyahu parried for time because he had unfinished business to attend to. He knew he had the opportunity of a lifetime to rearrange the pieces on the chessboard that is West Asia by eliminating Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, Yahya Sinwar in Gaza, Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, and putting Iran on notice. The ouster of Bashar al-Assad was the icing on the cake. It enabled Israel to occupy Mount Hermon on the Golan Heights. Trump's election win was the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle to fall into place. Trump had famously said he would stop the Ukraine-Russia conflict in 24 hours. The jury is still out on that one, but Trump is already claiming credit for pushing the warring sides in West Asia towards a much-needed peace. Trump posts a celebratory message on Truth Social even before Biden could officially announce a deal. Trump says this epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of a historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. He rounds it off by saying, "We have achieved so much without even being in the White House. Just imagine all of the wonderful things that will happen when I return to the White House." Trump supporters say he has set the ball rolling on 7th January when he had this to say.
If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone.
At the time, most commentators took the warning to be directed at Hamas. But a former Trump advisor, Steve Bannon, says it wasn't a warning to Hamas. It was a warning to Netanyahu. A former Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, concurs. But Trump had signaled his intent much earlier, on 22nd November to be precise. Less than 3 weeks after winning the election, Trump dispatches his West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff to Qatar. Witkoff meets Al-Thani. He then flies to Israel and meets Netanyahu on the 23rd. A day later, on 24th November, Mossad chief David Barnier travels to meet Al-Thani in Vienna. And from then on, things begin moving at lightning speed, quite literally. On 11th January, Witkoff again meets Netanyahu. He pushes the Israelis while Qatar leans on Hamas. The very next day, that's 12th January, the US, Qatar and Egypt put forward a final proposal. On 13th January, Israel and Hamas accepted. And by the 15th, voila, we have a deal. It is telling that Netanyahu chooses to speak to Trump before he calls Biden to thank them both. Israeli media cites Arab diplomats familiar with the talks as saying that a tense weekend meeting between Netanyahu and Witkoff led to a breakthrough. Witkoff does more to sway Netanyahu in a single sit-down than Biden could all year. During the meeting, Witkoff urges Netanyahu to accept key compromises necessary for an agreement. The Guardian newspaper published from London echoes a similar sentiment. It says, calling from Doha in Qatar last Friday evening after Shabbat had already begun, Witkoff announced he was coming to Israel and would meet Netanyahu, overruling the suggestion of Netanyahu's aides that they could meet once the Jewish day of rest was over. Witkoff, 67, a billionaire lawyer and real estate developer, insisted brusquely that they meet in the morning. In what some Israeli media describe as a quote-unquote tense meeting, Witkoff delivers his message. Trump wants a ceasefire for hostages deal. The Haaretz newspaper of Israel in turn quotes Israeli sources as saying that the involvement of the incoming US administration led by Trump's aggressive Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff revived hostage talks with Hamas. Not one to be outdone though, Biden says it's the exact framework of the deal he proposed back in May. But Biden's aides acknowledged that cooperation from Trump's team boosted the prospects for a deal. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller says the involvement of Trump's team has been critical in getting this deal over the line. The U.S. news website Axios reports that cooperation between two presidents who can't stand each other proves critical. It cites an Israeli official as saying that Witkoff injected quote-unquote Trump momentum into the talks. It was an X factor, says another Israeli official. A former Hamas health minister, Bassem Naim, tells Al Arabiya TV channel that the deal would not have happened without Trump. He says Trump's aides exerted the appropriate pressure on Netanyahu. Qatar's Prime Minister Al-Thani praises Trump and Witkoff for helping achieve the deal. He says he saw the way Witkoff fought for a deal to happen. The last leg of the talks take place in Doha with Hamas representatives on the first floor of a building and the Israelis on the second, with the Qatari and Egyptian mediators shuttling between them. Negotiations drag on till 3 a.m. local time each night, only to resume in the morning after a few hours of sleep.